Good day, everyone. Our group will discuss about Democritus, one of the most fascinating philosophers of ancient Greece. Democritus lived around 460 to 370 before Christ's era, and he was born in a city called Abdera. He was actually a disciple of Lycopus, the philosopher who first proposed the idea of atomism, a theory that everything is made up of tiny, indivisible particles called atoms. Together, Democritus and Lycopus founded what we call the atomist school, which sought to explain reality not through myths or gods, but through natural causes, specifically the movement and interaction of atoms in the void or empty space. Together, Democritus and Lycopus founded what we call the atomist school, which sought to explain reality not through myths or gods, but through natural causes, specifically the movement and interaction of atoms in the void or empty space. He was a contemporary of Socrates and Plato, but interestingly, Plato never mentioned Democritus by name. Some say this because Plato disagreed with his materialistic worldview, the idea that everything, even the soul, can be explained by matter and motion. Although Democritus wrote many works, sadly most of them were lost. What we know of his philosophy mainly comes from later thinkers, especially Aristotle, who discussed and critiqued his ideas. It's also said that Democritus traveled widely to Egypt, Persia, and even Athens, although we can confirm how true all of these stories are. Now, let's move to his role in atomism. Democritus is often called the laughing philosopher because he was known for his cheerful outlook and his belief that happiness comes from having a calm, rational mind. But more importantly, he is regarded as one of the founders of atomism, along with Lycopus. Democritus' version of atomism provided one of the earliest scientific explanations of the universe. Instead of saying that gods or supernatural forces created everything, he explained that all natural phenomena, from stones to stars to humans, could be understood as the result of atomic motion and interaction. This materialistic way of thinking became a foundation for later philosophical and scientific developments, influencing even modern atomic theory thousands of years later. Now let's take a closer look at Democritus' theory of atomism. He believed that everything in the universe is made up of atoms, tiny, indivisible, solid, and eternal units, moving constantly in the void or empty space. These atoms differ not in quality, but in shape, size, and arrangement. That means atoms themselves don't have color, taste, or smell. Those are just sensory conventions or appearances. According to Democritus, reality is atoms and the void, and everything else is opinion. When atoms collide and combine in different ways, they form objects, worlds, and even living beings. Interestingly, he also proposed that even the soul is made up of atoms, very fine, light, and mobile ones, which give life and movement to living things. When a person dies, these soul atoms disperse, explaining the end of
Democritus
consciousness.
and Protagoras on sensation and knowledge. Today, we'll look at the two Greek philosophers, Protagoras and Democritus, who often very different views on sensation and knowledge. Protagoras, the relativity of sensation, Protagoras is famous for saying man is the measure of all things. He believed that all sensations are equally true for each reserved meaning. True is subjective. If one person feels the wind as the cold and another as warm, both arise in their own experience. For Protagoras, perception itself defines reality. There is no universal truth, only individual truth. For Democritus, the unreliability of the senses. In contrast, Democritus, an atomist, thought that everything consists of atom and void. He claimed that sensation and false since they only show appearances, not the real nature of things. The qualities like color, taste, and sound exist only in perception, not in the atoms themselves. Thus, sense-based knowledge is unreliable. Truth lies beyond senses. Knowledge of the God. Democritus viewed God as a higher but moral being made of mind atoms. They live longer than humans, but are still corruptible, not irreplaceable. Teaching his belief that only atoms in void only exist. Two kinds of knowledge. He distinguished between bastard knowledge, sense-based and uncertain and perceptive. True-born knowledge based on reason and intellect, revealing the true structure of reality.
Let's start with Protagoras. According to him, all sensations are equally true for each perceiver. In simple terms, Protagoras believed that truth depends on the person who experiences it. For example, if I feel like the water is cold, then it is true to me, even if someone feels it's warm. This idea known as subjective truth, meaning that truth changes depending on one's perception. On the other hand, Democritus had a different view. He argued that all sensations of the special senses are false. For Democritus, our senses can deceive us. What we see, hear, or feel might not reflect reality. He believed that true knowledge comes not from the senses, but from reason and intellect. Now let's move on to Democritus' view of the gods. For him, gods are higher beings. They live longer than humans, but are not immortal. They can still be destroyed or corrupted, meaning they are corruptible and not incorruptible. Lastly, Democritus identified two kinds of knowledge. The first is bastard knowledge. This is knowledge we get from our senses, such as sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. The second is true-born knowledge. This comes from reasoning and intellect, which he believed leads to the real understanding. In summary, Protagoras emphasizes that truth depends on personal perception, while Democritus focused on reason and intellect as the foundation of real knowledge. Their ideas reminds us that what we sense and what we know are not always the same, and that true wisdom often requires us to think beyond our senses.
Now let's proceed to the ethical theory of conduct of Democritus. So even though Democritus is best known as an atomist, his ethics are actually not directly tied to atomism. Instead, his focus was on how to live a happy and balanced life. Because for Democritus, happiness means cheerfulness or tranquility. This is what the Greeks called euthymia or ataraxia. It's a state of inner peace and stability of the soul, not the body. Although he believed that while our actions are shaped by pain or pleasure, true happiness is attained and doesn't come from the body, but from the soul. So now let's proceed to the true versus false pleasures according to Democritus. So Democritus also distinguished between true and false pleasures. So just as our senses can deceive us, sense pleasures are unreliable according to him. He once said, and I quote, "The good and the true are the same for all men, but the pleasant differs among individuals." So what he means is that what we feel as pleasant can differ from person to person. What I feel as pleasant right now may differ from another person. But for him, true goodness remains constant. Therefore, the goal of life should not be indulgence or physical pleasure, but the well-being of the soul, as what I have discussed earlier. And to achieve that, one must learn to weigh and judge pleasures carefully, following the principle of symmetry and harmony. So this balance ensures that we don't let temporary pleasures ruin our long-term peace of mind or tranquility for Democritus. So for the last discussion of our topic, let's proceed to the theory of evolutionary and cultural development for Democritus. So aside from the ethics, Democritus also influenced theories of cultural evolution. He believed that civilization developed out of necessity, what he called Kreia, and through humanity's search for what is useful or helpful. He thought that people learn by imitating nature. For example, humans observe animals to learn skills like building shelters or crafting tools. Democritus saw human progress as something driven by need, observation, and imitation. What he means by this is the necessity of us humans.